Welcome to This Explainer. You know, if you've ever looked at a massive, wildly successful company and thought, man, I could never come up with something that genius, well, get ready to look at the world a whole lot differently. Today, we're diving into the hidden genius of everyday life. We're talking about billion-dollar ideas that are literally hiding in plain sight. We're going to unpack how innovation is actually engineered, and I promise you, by the end of this explainer, you're going to walk away with a completely new lens for viewing the world around you. Let's get into it. When we hear the word innovation, right, our minds almost instantly jump to these grand, sweeping frontiers of human achievement. We're thinking artificial intelligence, quantum computing, next-generation robotics that are going to fundamentally change the fabric of society. And then, well, we drop back down to earth and look at our actual everyday reality. Because the things that are genuinely ruining our mornings, they aren't a lack of quantum processing power. Nope. It's a coffee cup lid that leaks all over our favorite shirt. It's a hopelessly tangled mass of charging cables. It's spending 3 miserable hours sweating over terrible assembly instructions for a basic bookshelf. You see, the media loves to obsess over high-tech breakthroughs, but the truth is, massive, world-changing innovation, the kind that actually improves millions of lives, usually starts right there, in the mundane, frustrating hurdles of our daily routines. So why do we just put up with these terrible, leaky cups and tangled cords? Well, it all comes down to something called psychological fixation. We are, at our core, creatures of habit. And this fixation acts as this invisible cognitive barrier. It basically conditions us to just accept everyday inconveniences as a totally normal part of life. Oh, it's just how it is. This bias places strict, invisible limits on our imagination. It whispers to us that a fork is just for eating, or that a suitcase is just a heavy box you have to carry by a handle. Because things have always been used a certain way, our brains literally block us from seeing how they could be improved. We almost never stop and ask the magical question, wait, what if this could be drastically more convenient? Take rolling luggage, for example. For literally centuries, the accepted norm was just lugging around heavy suitcases. That was just travel. You dealt with it. But in 1970, a guy named Bernard Sato was struggling through an airport with 2 massive bags, and he happened to notice a worker easily pushing a heavy machine on a wheeled skid. Now, Sato didn't invent the wheel. He definitely didn't invent the suitcase. He just combined them. He slapped 4 casters and a strap onto a bag, created rolling luggage, and forever revolutionized how we travel. Or think about the humble vegetable peeler. Sam Farber watched his wife, who had arthritis, struggle painfully with a standard metal peeler. But instead of just accepting that as normal, he created a peeler with a soft, thick, ergonomic rubber grip. That incredibly simple combination of empathy and observation birthed OXO, a company that is now valued at over $1 billion. Absolutely zero microchips required. And this kind of innovation, it's hiding in our most basic, unglamorous daily routines, like eating. Look at a company called Natural Heaven. They looked at pasta, a basic staple food, and saw a massive opportunity for a healthier, more sustainable alternative. What they did was take the heart of palm, specifically a highly sustainable type called peach palm, grown down in Ecuador, and they transformed it into a vegan, gluten-free pasta and rice alternative. They solved frustrating dietary restrictions for millions of people, but they did it while actively avoiding rainforest depletion by using existing agricultural lands. It's just an everyday activity, radically improved simply by looking at an existing resource from a completely new angle. We see this exact same pattern in another everyday category, the weekend cooler. For decades, coolers were just these cheap plastic boxes you'd grab at a gas station and toss out when the hinges inevitably snapped. That was the good enough standard. But brothers Roy and Ryan Siders absolutely rejected that. They were frustrated outdoor enthusiasts who were just sick and tired of their coolers breaking and their ice melting halfway through a trip. So they applied commercial-grade insulation and a process called rotomolding, which is usually used for making kayaks, by the way, to create a virtually indestructible cooler. They didn't just solve a frustrating hunting and fishing problem, they created Yeti. They turned a disposable, boring commodity into a premium, cult-favorite lifestyle brand that people proudly pay top dollar for. All right, so how do we actually do this? Let's get into the innovation toolkit. Here are 4 methods to reverse engineer success. We're going to break down 4 specific concepts. Number 1, the jobs to be done framework. Number 2, customer observation. Number 3, the pain audit. And number 4, reverse innovation. Let's dive in. Method number 1 starts with a really profound question from Harvard professor Clayton Christensen. Next time you look at something, ask yourself, what job are you hiring this product for? This is what we call the jobs to be done framework.
We need to completely shift our framing away from a product's raw features or its specs or its target demographics. Instead, you've got to think of the customer as an employer. They have a specific job that needs to get done in their life, and they are literally hiring a product to do it for them.
This crucial point is perfectly illustrated by a classic real-world example, the morning milkshake. Now, if you just look at a milkshake as a product, you'd think, okay, it's a sweet, cold dairy drink. You might try to make it fruitier or maybe cheaper to boost your sales. But when researchers actually studied the people buying milkshakes at 8 in the morning, they realized these customers weren't buying a sweet dessert. No, they were hiring the milkshake for a very specific job. They had a long, incredibly boring morning commute. They needed something that took a long time to consume, kept their free hand busy, staved off hunger until lunchtime, and, crucially, fit perfectly in a cup holder. A banana? Eaten way too fast. A donut makes your hands all sticky on the steering wheel. The milkshake was hired to make a boring commute enjoyable. Once you truly understand the job, you can actually innovate the solution. And this framework is exactly how Casper completely disrupted the mattress industry. Casper realized that people weren't really sitting around getting excited about buying layers of foam or metal springs. The job the customer needed done was simply getting a comfortable place to sleep into their bedroom. Think about the traditional method. It involved awkward showrooms, pushy salespeople, and the nightmare of trying to pivot a giant king-size mattress up a narrow stairwell. Casper didn't just sell foam. They built their entire business model around solving that specific job by vacuum sealing a high-quality mattress into a manageable box that just ships right to your front door. They shifted the whole focus to a completely hassle-free delivery experience.
Moving on to method 2, customer observation. This means watching users in their natural habitat. You can't just send out a multiple-choice survey and call it a day. You have to physically see what people actually do, paying special attention to unintended uses of a product. Get this. Did you know Dyson's revolutionary bladeless hairdryer was actually inspired by observing the mechanics of jet engines? It's true. The source material we're looking at suggests a really brilliant exercise. Make your new hires track a user for a full day as part of their onboarding process. Having fresh eyes watch a real customer struggle out in the wild will instantly reveal blind spots that your veteran engineers and marketers have completely stopped noticing. Which brings us to method 3, the pain audit. I absolutely love this one because it essentially requires you to complain constructively. I want you to get your team together and literally make a list of minor, daily irritations. Have everyone practice mindful awareness of those little moments where they mutter under their breath, "Man, I wish this was easier." The list is going to sound mundane. We're talking tangled charging cords, a backpack that pinches your shoulders, gardening tools that give you blisters, grocery bags that constantly tip over and spill in the trunk of your car. Do not ignore these. These incredibly frustrating minor moments are actually hidden triggers for massive innovation. Seriously, every single annoyance is a billion-dollar company just waiting to happen. Finally, we have method 4, reverse innovation, which is sometimes called trickle-up innovation. So traditionally, companies develop expensive, highly complex products in wealthy developed markets, and then they try to strip them down to sell cheaply in emerging markets. Reverse innovation flips that completely upside down. It's when a product is born out of absolute necessity in a low-budget, highly resource-constrained emerging market. And because it is so incredibly efficient and clever, it eventually gets introduced to and completely disrupts the developed, wealthy markets. To prove just how powerful reverse innovation really is, consider a staggering number: $800. That is the price of General Electric's revolutionary portable ultrasound machine. Originally, GE built massive $100,000 ultrasound machines for sprawling American hospitals. But doctors in rural China, they couldn't afford those, and they certainly couldn't transport them to remote villages. So GE was forced to innovate within severe real-world constraints, and they ended up inventing a lightweight, laptop-sized ultrasound for around $800. It was so incredibly effective and convenient that it didn't just succeed in rural China. It trickled up and completely disrupted the American medical market, with first responders and clinics nationwide enthusiastically adopting the portable tech. So, as we bring all of this together, we really need to rethink where great ideas actually come from. The prevailing myth of our time is that breakthroughs only live in Silicon Valley, born in these gleaming white labs full of supercomputers. But the reality is that the next game-changing ideas are hiding right now in your kitchen drawers, at your local bus stop, and at the bottom of your laundry basket. The true innovation lab is the world around you, filled with everyday hurdles just waiting for someone to stop accepting them as normal. As you go about your day-to-day, every time you feel a slight ping of annoyance, every time a lid leaks, a cord tangles, or a process feels just a little too tedious, I want you to stop, look at it, and realize that the answer to those frustrations could be exactly what sparks your next big breakthrough. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Now, I'll leave you with this. What would happen if your everyday annoyances were more convenient?